Welcome back. We continue with the mixed reactions from the business to the State of the Nation address. The Progressive Professionals Forum is welcoming President Ramaphosa's robust address as an important milestone. Let's discuss this now further with PPF President, Mr. Kashif Wicomb. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining us here on Newsnight. The PPF's statement seems to applaud the state's energy crisis plan mentioned by the President during the State of the Nation address last night. Just talk us through your initial reaction.
Good evening and thank you for having us. The PPF applauds the fact that the President and the South African government saw it fit to declare a state of disaster in South Africa in order for the state to pull out all stops in order to address the severe energy crisis which our country is facing, our nation is facing, and which of course has a very detrimental effect on the economy. So we welcome the state of disaster which was declared. Of course, we wait with bated breath in terms of what that means, but we would assume that it would mean that that could be a more efficient and effective procurement of goods and services in order to address the energy crisis. We would believe and like to believe that it would mean that the state will intervene and get in place professional engineers and technocrats into ESCOM and others so that they can address the technical challenge which ESCOM faces.
In their statement that was released, the PPF also mentioned that it welcomes the national state of disaster. There are many people who are of the view that this will just elicit looting and corruption. Why is the PPF of the view, rather, that this is a good thing, and why are you welcoming the national state of disaster when it comes to the electricity crisis in the country?
I think there are certain South Africans who would never be satisfied. On the one hand, South Africans are calling for the state to act efficiently, effectively, and swiftly. In order to do that, the state needs to get rid of the red tape which naturally bedevils governments throughout the world. And so this is what the state of disaster is all about. Now, if South Africans are going to go back and say, but if you declare a state of disaster, there is potential fraud that's going to take place, there is potential theft that's going to take place, then pretty much we're asking the government to do nothing. So in much as we also have the fears that a state of disaster leaves room for potential fraud and theft, we need to have the faith that the government and all its elected leaders and those who are in the ruling part and those who are in the opposition will ensure that as we address this crisis, that we don't have the same fate and we don't have the same experience as we did during the 2020 COVID crisis. And that's our position on that.
There's also been much debate around the appointment of a Minister of Electricity in the presidency. Just talk us through what your view is with regards to this firstly, and also what type of person do you think would be appropriate for this position?
We don't believe that the president needed to establish another ministry within government, and we don't believe that the president needs to establish another ministry within the presidency, because we have a Minister of Minerals and Energy, we have the Minister of Public Enterprises, and now we've got a Minister of Electricity, and we'd like to see how all three of these ministries interact firstly. Secondly, last year also, the president established an SME business unit within the presidency. What does that mean for the Minister of Small Business? So we believe that the Minister of Electricity, on the face of it, shows that the South African government is serious about addressing the energy crisis which our nation faces. But we don't believe that there was a need to establish a Minister of Electricity. And if the President, in his wisdom, believes that such a ministry is required, we then want to see what the terms of reference are for that ministry. And equally, and more importantly, we want to see how the Minister of Electricity engages and interacts with the other ministries with whom he or she will touch us. In terms of the qualifications of that person, it is key that that person understands how government works. It is key, not necessarily that that person is an engineer, but what is key, that that minister, that all ministers must be listening ministers. They must surround themselves with people who have a greater technical skill than what they have, and they must listen to those people in order that the ministry in its entirety which includes the minister and his advisors and the technocrats with which he or she surrounds him or herself with, that they come up with a joint solution in order to address these challenges. And of course, those requirements are not unique to the Minister of Electricity. Those requirements and conditions which the Progressive Professionals Forum puts forward must be the case for all ministries within the South African government.
Just lastly, Mr. Wicomb, we know that unemployment is an ongoing issue in our country. We heard from President Cyril Ramaphosa last night during his State of the Nation address, stating that there will be an employment incentive that will take place as well. Just talk to us about what the PPF's role is and viewpoint is with regards to job creation and getting those unemployment numbers to a better place in South Africa.
I think the role of the PPF and the role of the private sector is key. And I think that the state must be an enabler in order to ensure that the private sector and SMEs become job creators and that our people who are unemployed are job seekers. For example, the President proudly stated last night that we have 24 million people who are beneficiaries of social grants. That's good, but it's also bad in that we've got a population of 60 million, which means plus minus 40% of the population survives on social grants. That should not be the case. We must say that plus minus 80% of the population or 40% of the population are entrepreneurs and job creators as opposed to job seekers. So to answer your question, in order for the private sector to assist in the creation of jobs, it is the state's role and duty to ensure that there is an enabling environment around that. And like the PPF has said before, we want the state to focus on the promotion and of cooperatives that will organize SMMEs in a very uniform way. I also want to state that we speak about what the President has said, but we don't speak about what he hasn't said. And so he hasn't mentioned the report on NHI and the progress on that. He hasn't mentioned the promise last year to launch or draft an SOE Act. He hasn't mentioned the progress on the BE legislation and where that is at. So there are certain things which the state president hasn't mentioned and which we hope and have faith that the ministries which follow him and will sweep will speak about these issues and give it more flesh in the weeks to come when the various ministries give their budgets going forward.
Well, we wait and see. Mr. Wicomb, thank you very much for your time this evening. We appreciate your insights. That was Kashif Wicomb, the president of the Progressive Professionals Forum, just talking to us about the PPF's reaction to the State of the Nation address that took place last night.